Picture, if you will, a lawyer. Nice suit and tie, neat bag of papers, a laptop, a pen in the pocket, standing at ease in the courtroom, ready to argue for their client. That is Lovemore Ndou today. But I can paint two other pictures of Lovemore which are vastly different but equally true. A small child on the banks of the Limpopo River, not scared of crocodiles because local superstition said he was immune to being bitten. And a world champion in the boxing ring with chiselled abs and a devastating left jab. He's put his life on paper in the very fascinating autobiography, Tough Love. Lovemore, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Joe. Man, you just got me all pumped up with that song. That was my ring entrance song throughout my boxing career.
Now, Lovemore, can you paint a picture for us of your childhood home?
Look, I grew up in a little shack. I come from a very, very poor family. And when I say poor, I mean to an extent that, sometimes we'll go by without a meal. A day or two will go by without a meal. So when I was so poor that I didn't even start school until I was 9 years of age.
And yet here you are.
That didn't stop me. So that didn't stop me from pursuing, my career and pursuing my dreams. And that's why I wrote this book. Basically, the main message is nothing is impossible in this world. When you put your mind, soul, heart, and sweat, into it. It really doesn't matter whether you had a very bad start, in life. With perseverance, hard work, and dedication, you can still make, your dreams come true, which is exactly what I did.
What was the incident that got you first sent to a boxing class?
Look, growing up in South Africa, I had serious anger issues as a young kid, as a young child, and that didn't help because, in South Africa, then pretty much everybody, every teenager walked around with a gun or a knife. So, with that anger, chances are if I didn't take a box, I could probably end up dead. I used to try different sports, because I always thought of sports as my way, my ticket out of poverty or in my ticket out of, apartheid South Africa. I was good at soccer, but, I didn't last long in the field because of my anger. If somebody played rough, I would turn around, I would knock them out, and then I'd get kicked out. And it happened on another occasion. I knocked this kid out cold, and then they got a security guard to escort me out of the field. And as he was escorting me, he said to me, "Kid, I watch you all the time. I don't think soccer is for you because you don't last long in the field. Why don't you try boxing?" So, I took on his advice, and that's how I got into boxing. It turned out this guy was, in fact, a boxing trainer himself and a boxer himself. So he started training me. And the first thing, and I remember he said to me, "Look, we need to work on your anger because that's not going to help you." I used to think, look, this is boxing, this is fighting. You need to be angry to fight. But I was wrong because boxing is more like, a game of chess. You need to have a clear mind. Otherwise, you're going to get beat up. So I had to learn the hard way. He put me in sparring, with bigger boys, and I was getting beat up. And then eventually I told myself, wow, I need to listen, And I realized the minute I started, to calm down, I was able to counter punch and perform well. And that really changed me as a person. I became this calm and collected person that I am today. So, which is why I always tell people, if it wasn't for boxing, I'll probably be dead today, locked up in jail.
What sort of a boxer were you? How would you describe your style?
I was aggressive. I was, it depended who I was fighting. I like to think of myself as an all-round fighter. If I had to box, I would box. If I had to brawl, I would brawl. But one thing for sure, I was always super fit. I always came into a fight, well prepared and super fit.
You are listening to ABC Radio across Australia. I'm Joel Reinberger. My guest is Lovemore Ndou, who is a lawyer these days, but was a world champion boxer in his time and has just released the autobiography about exactly that. Lovemore, you were a switch hitter, meaning that you could leave with your left hand or your right hand, which is a really unusual skill amongst boxers. They tend to stick with one or the other. Why did you learn to flip that way?
Well, it's funny because when I was 16, I was incarcerated, on trumped-up charges, a white girl took a liking on me at a time in South Africa where, mixed relations were not allowed. So, I ended up getting arrested and, they wanted to hit me. First they, accused me of sexual assaulting her. But the good thing is she turned around and said, no, if they do that, she's going to tell the whole world, that wasn't true. But eventually they just decided to lock me up for 30 days, for 90 days in custody with no charge. At the time they had a law where they could lock up political activists for up to 90 days without a charge. But the law was getting abused because, anyone they didn't like, they would just use the law on them. So I became one of those victims. But anyway, on the last day, after the 90 days, I was dragged to court. And that day I get charged, with theft. Apparently I stole some candy. So it went from sexual assault to stealing candy. And then I get sentenced to 6 cuts, which means I had to be lashed. They got these cops to hit me and, they drew blood, but they kept calling me, referring to me as a gaffer, which is a derogatory term. So I got upset and told them to F off. That was the worst mistake I made because they started kicking me, they started hitting me, and they broke my left arm, but the worst thing is they took a dog and set a dog on me, almost beat my eye off. People usually see the scar on my face and people think it's from boxing. No, this is from a dog bite. But anyway, so that's where I got this injury. Now, during my boxing career, because my left hand was my best, punch. My jab was my best punch.
Yeah.
So because I've overused that arm over the years, I started having problems. At times my arm would get a bit numb. So that's when I decided, no, I have to learn to switch. And sometimes boxing, as a southpaw to allow, my arm, to calm down a bit and give it, a rest. So that's how I became, a switch hitter. That I became so good at it.
You were Floyd Mayweather's sparring partner for a little while there. What was it like facing up to a champion like Floyd in the practice ring on a daily basis?
Oh, look, he's a great fighter. He's, he's pound for pound the best, and he deserves it because, he's a hard worker. He's a natural talent. But for me, it was an honor to get into that ring, and work with him. It was a great learning experience for me.
But what was he actually like? Was it because he's known to have a little bit of cheek about him, isn't he?
Oh, he was. I recall, he used to make some comments, and I didn't particularly like some of the comments he made. I remember the first time, we got into the sparring session, he called me Jumanji. I said, no, you fool, Jumanji is not from Africa. Try Shaka Zulu.
For all the...
I knew with him I had to use, reverse psychology. Otherwise he was just going to, through the whole sparring session, he was just going to try and put me down. And he had all these yes men in the gym that, always go, follow him everywhere. And they just laugh at any stupid thing that he says.
Now, you've had, as much as it was a tough life in the ring, your life off the ring was quite tough as well. Looking through the list of all the people who've worked as a manager for you, Lovemore, you got ripped off and they didn't live up to their promises. Is that partly why you went to learn the law, so you'd never sign another terrible contract again?
That's correct. My dealings with promoters and boxing managers, and that incident also that occurred in South Africa, those were the main reasons why I went into law. I unfortunately, when I first came to Australia, I signed up, with Bill Modi, and we ended up having some contractual disputes, and I was ranked number 2 in the world, and for 2 years I was sitting there, and the title was changing hands, and he wasn't giving me an opportunity to fight for the world title. But eventually I found out that, he had some deal, with Fox Sports where for as long as he had me and another fire Shan and Taylor, under contract, they'll continue to pay him, some money every month. So he didn't even have, so he was making a lot of money. So he didn't have to get me a world title for him to make money, but that wasn't good enough for me because, I needed to become a world champion so, I can make more money. But he knew, the other thing he also knew that, if I became a world champion, I would start demanding more money and eventually go sign up with other promoters. So he just held me back. But eventually, I stopped fighting. I said, look, I'm not going to fight. If you don't give me what I want, I'm not going to fight. So for 14 months, I was inactive and I lost my ranking. From coming, I was ranked number 2 and then here I was ranked nowhere in the world. So I had to start all over again. But that didn't stop me. I continued and eventually I went on to win, the IBF title, the IBO title, and the WBF titles.
What sort of law do you practice now, Lovemore?
My main areas are family law and crime.
Why have you chosen those particular parts of the law, which are both quite difficult?
Look, with family law, I think, I always look at, sometimes men in particular, I felt at times men, the courts are not fair to men, and I feel, it's wrong for the children because, it's not in the best interest of the children, not to have contact or a relationship with the father, or in particular, not just the father, but with any other parent, and I feel that's one of the things that got me into family law because, it's mostly not just fighting for the parents to have a relationship, but, fighting for the best interest of the children. They got to have a relationship with both, with both parents, irrespective, of the relationship breakdown between the parents. With crime, I've always been interested in crime, and, with my dealings again in South Africa, that's another thing, that got me into, got me to be so interested, in practicing, criminal law.
Lovemore Ndou, congratulations on your book, Tough Love. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on the program.